product e-commerce, membership e-commerce, wholesaler e-commerce. There's a lot of different kinds of e-commerce sites, and I'm going to tell you all about them, which one might work best for you, and what you're going to need to prepare to make one. Hey everybody, it's Zach here at Yaz, and by comment request, I am making a video about e-commerce. What I'm going to be going through today, very first quickly, is which e-commerce platform you should choose, and then the different kinds of e-commerce platforms that I have experience with, and the kind of a checklist of things that you need to get started working on so that they'll be successful. So I think there's quite a few other or more e-commerce platforms than the two that I'm going to talk about today. These are the only two that I have experience with, one more than others. So if I don't talk about the one that you use, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not good, it's just that we don't have experience with it. So the first one I want to talk about is Woocommerce. So Woocommerce is the one that we use the most because we generally build websites in WordPress. It's just kind of a paid plugin that goes with WordPress, and it has a ton of functionality to it. The plus side of using Woocommerce is that because it's in addition to WordPress sites, there's no real limit to what else you can do with it. WordPress is open source, meaning people can build plugins all over the world. Most of the things I'm talking about today, I guess all of them, again, there's no real limitations, can be done with Woocommerce and the plugins. The downside of Woocommerce is that it can be quite a bit more complicated because there's a lot more options you can do with it. So Shopify, on the other hand, is kind of the opposite benefit and problem, where it's much more, I find, user-friendly to set up. It's definitely more geared towards people who are not developers. But the limitation there is that you're only able to use the tools that Shopify has. Now, they definitely have a lot of tools, so it's not like a bare bones thing. But if you wanted a website that had e-commerce, but also, I don't want to say some other functionality and have it be wrong that Shopify doesn't have it. Anyway, some big functionality that you could build into a regular WordPress site, but you couldn't build into Shopify, you might end up needing two separate sites. But if you're just strictly doing e-commerce, there's not really any reasons why Shopify won't work for you. So jumping into the first and most obvious kind of e-commerce website is your physical product e-commerce. So any site you've gone to, like Amazon or Walmart's online site, or a bunch of local sites that sell food product, anything physical that you purchase and is then shipped to you, or maybe you do pickup, is a physical product e-commerce site. The most challenging thing for most of my clients when setting up a physical product site are getting all the shipping information together and getting the photography together. So shipping information, if you want to be shipping through something like Canada Post or FedEx, generally what you'll need to do is figure out the weights and dimensions of every single product that you have, so that Canada Post, for example, can take all of that information in an order, put it all together, and figure out how much to charge based on how heavy and large the parcel is going to be and how far it's going. I have seen sites that don't use this shipping because I understand that it is a lot of work, and you can use flat rate shipping where you just say shipping is this price no matter what. The challenge with that is that in my experience, I had a client who shipped product to up to Nunavut, and it ended up that the shipping was way more expensive than the product itself. So in that case, what my client actually had to do was end up just disallowing certain places. But if you're using Canada Post, it knows how far stuff is, and it changes the pricing based on that. In terms of product photography, this can really make or break an e-commerce website. Really, no matter what kind of e-commerce site it is, you need some sort of consistent visual representation. So if you're selling product, you need to make sure that you are getting photography of your product that's within the same dimensions, has the same general background. Usually what you'll see is just like the product and then like a white background and a square rectangular photo. Because what you don't want to see when you get to an e-commerce store is a bunch of products that are like, this one's this size and then this one's this size, and then the page looks all wonky because things are all out of place. Or just to have no consistency. Every product looks like it's from a completely different website. And if you're just getting started, it's not always possible for you to get that. I know a lot of manufacturers, if you are reselling product, can provide some pretty good product photography, but it's definitely one of the things I would highly recommend looking into very, very soon if you're looking to start an e-commerce site of any kind, because it is one of the biggest things that holds back a lot of e-commerce sites that we've seen. So what do you need to do for a product e-commerce site? You need to set up your payment processor. So that is like Stripe, Moneris, Square, whatever payment processor you're using to take the money from your customers. They all take a cut. My experience is that it's pretty similar until you get into like really high volumes, then they'll be willing to cut you deals. But it is really important that you use a payment processor, because if anything goes wrong, they have all this liability protection and you're not dealing with that. You need to set up all of your shipping information like I mentioned. So pick who you want to ship with, figure out if you want to do flat rate or the other kind that calculates automatically, and then put the work in to pick that organization, set up your account, and record all of your weights and stuff. You need to understand taxes and fees. So where are you shipping to? Do you need to deal with taxes in different provinces, different countries, as well as fees? If you are shipping, let's say like bottles of alcohol, there's probably like alcohol fees and bottle fees. Not as common, it's usually in more niche products, but still something that you want to look out for to get ahead of the game on. And finally, again, the product photography, I'll mention this again. It is one of the most important things that you can do to make a website that people get to and want to shop at, instead of get to and kind of get that gross feeling where you don't really trust something because it looks out of place. The second type of e-commerce site is a wholesaler product e-commerce site. So in a lot of ways, this is very, very similar to a regular product, but in this case, you want to include wholesalers that get maybe special pricing, special perks, whatever that may be. There's lots of plugins that you can use with like Woocommerce, and I'm sure Shopify has a lot of options for this as well. That lets you decide that if somebody is logged in as a wholesaler, they see either completely different prices, or maybe they even see products that your regular customers don't see. So if you have like bulk options, if they're buying pallets of stuff where the regular consumer would only buy like a few packages, that's all an option in there as well. In terms of what you need for this, all of the same general stuff: payment processor, shipping, taxes, fees, photography. But kind of as a last piece to this, you need to make sure you understand what difference you want your wholesalers to experience than your regular customers. I've dealt with situations where wholesaler clients of mine that have wholesaler companies want to integrate with like their POS and their inventory management. That stuff is doable. It's generally a little bit trickier, so you want to also get ahead of that and figure out what you're using and whether or not they will integrate well with the platform that you want to move to. The third type of e-commerce site is a recurring membership e-commerce site. So generally, recurring membership you won't find as often as the other ones, and where I see them most is in organizations or associations where people need to pay a membership to get access to perks. Usually that's like access to documents, mailing lists, other sorts of information that you don't have access to as the general public. I don't know if I would necessarily consider this an e-commerce website, but if there's a website that is taking payment, that's good enough to show up on my list here. The biggest struggle that I've seen with this kind of website is figuring out renewals. So do you want to have it where I sign up on January 1st and then I have to renew exactly a year later on January 1st, and then somebody else signs up halfway through the year and then they have to renew again just a year after that? That's usually the easiest way to do it, but we've also dealt with organizations that want to do all of their renewals at the same time. And if that does apply to you, you need to make sure that you understand whether or not you're going to give like a cheaper price for somebody who registers halfway through, since they're only getting half the benefit. I've experienced one client who does all the renewals one time a year, doesn't charge or doesn't have like a discounted fee. They just don't take registrations in that last 3 months. And it works for them, it works for their members, so there's really nothing wrong with that. You just need to make sure that you understand how you want all of the renewals to work. So what you need for a site like this is just to set up your payment processor, understand your taxes, and figure out all of your renewal information. The fourth is digital product e-commerce. So very similar again to physical product e-commerce, but that you are selling, let's say, articles or stuff that's just a digital download. Like if you're an artist and you're selling digital art, people can go download it. I mean, it's usually easier to track inventory because you're not dealing with real physical things that if I take this, it doesn't exist. Digital products can be scaled a bunch. What's, I guess, a little bit different with this is that you don't need to worry about shipping, but you still really need to worry about the imagery that you use. Depending on what you're selling, like if you're selling art, just display your art, that's easy. But if you're selling like informational articles, that can be hard to visually represent, but it is still really, really important that you have some sort of consistent visual representation of that. And the last one on the list, which can be the most difficult, is the subscription e-commerce. So I've seen these in like working together with different kinds of e-commerce. Usually what you'll see with a subscription e-commerce, think of like a loot box. I guess it's probably a gamer term you might not know about. Like a subscription box where you're paying every month and they are just shipping you either physical product or digital product every month. Those can be really good for people providing e-commerce because that gives you a really good idea of your recurring income, that every month you're going to have this many people paying and renewing, rather than relying on people who are finding your site for the first time. This completely depends on your business model and how you do everything, but it is completely possible to do. The biggest issue that I've seen with this kind of e-commerce is somewhere between shipping issues and renewal issues. So if you have people that are on your subscription, does theirs renew all at the same time? Again, do you have to worry about people getting a subscription halfway through the month? And then when are you sending out those shipments? I had a client who wanted to send them out all at the same time, so we needed to kind of work out a system that if somebody bought on, let's say, Monday, then they would have to be notified that their shipment would not be sent until Saturday because that's when all of the other ones were going to be sent. And as long as, again, you know this, you understand this, your customers understand this, there's no real reason why it would be a problem. Just make sure that you have it figured out and that everybody understands it. So what you need for this kind of site is kind of a full list of everything you've needed for most of the other stuff. So you need your payment processor, you need your shipping provider, you need to understand your taxes and your fees, and you still need product photography. If you're sending out a cool box, take a picture of the box, show people what's in it. It's really important to be able to sell your products, especially if you want somebody to sign up and get it every single month. Show them the value that they're going to get every single month. So overall, in conclusion, there's lots of different ways to sell product, information, memberships with an e-commerce website. Just put some work into understanding what you're trying to accomplish, what your business model is, what your customers are willing to interact with, and start working on those pieces that are going to take the longest amount of time so that you can launch with no problem. Thank you so much for watching. If there's anything more specific you want me to get into with e-commerce, please let me know and I can absolutely make another video. Otherwise, please like, comment, subscribe. Tell me about your day. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, you could if you wanted, but most likely just tell me what you want me to talk about and I will make a video for it. So thank you so much for watching. I might have already said that, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.